It's taking action that creates confident people. Excellence comes from the willingness to fight for inches. My guest on this episode of Passing the Torch was a pilot for the Air Force Thunderbirds and has accomplished so much more. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Mock at Circle Entry. Please welcome Air Force fighter pilot, speaker, author, hater of spiders, and loser of fights with headsets. Passing the Torch with Michelle MACE Curran starts now. First and foremost, welcome to the show, and thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, and that was quite the list. You've clearly done a little bit of digging lately.
Yeah, and did you appreciate the aviators? I
appreciate. I would wear mine as well. I have probably 3 or 4 pairs, just none within arm's reach of my desk.
No, all good. I just want to start off by asking, why is life great right now?
So I am on the precipice. When this episode airs, we'll be about to release my first nonfiction book that you can see over my shoulder. So we're recording this, though, a little bit before that, right? So I'm about a little over 2 months away from this book that I've been working on for 3 years coming out and like going out into the world. Last week, I was in studio for 3 days recording the audiobook. And so I'm like in the calm before the storm where I've just been building for so long. And I'm still continuing to do that as we're in like the pre-sale mode, which is super important for bestseller lists and all that stuff. But I feel like I am clickety-clacking up the giant drop on a roller coaster, and we're about to get to the top and like get launched off the other side. So it's just there's a lot of anticipation, there's a lot of stress, but it's just a fun, exciting time.
No, it is. And I'm going to link all the pre-order links in the show notes so people can get access to it. So with that, do you mind, will you please discuss the Flipside?
Yeah, I love that we're just diving into it right away. I was like, don't forget to talk about the book. But that question, it's just such a focus of mine currently that I couldn't answer your first question without talking about the book.
Yeah.
So yeah, this has been in the works for 3 years. It's called The Flipside, How to Invert Your Perspective and Turn Fear into Your Superpower. Mm-hmm. And each chapter takes a story from the cockpit, a few outside the jet, but many from the cockpit. Some of the scariest, most stressful moments that I've ever experienced in my 13 years flying a fighter jet. Some that led to kind of life-changing lessons on the backside for me. So I think there are things that people will just find kind of compelling and page-turning by the nature of the content. But then the bulk of each chapter are just lessons and frameworks and takeaways that I learned from those situations that anyone can use in their life about flipping fear, dealing with adversity, responding under stress, creating their own luck, kind of stacking the odds in their favor to get the things that they want. And it's just super useful stuff. And I cannot wait for it to go out into the world. I feel like I've been growing a child for 3 years that I finally get to be like, look how cute it is. Look, post the picture of the baby on Instagram. And I can't wait to just hear how it impacts people.
Yeah, like how do you, like, even referencing like your previous book, Upside Down Dreams, how do you hope your books impact people, specifically young children? Because I think there's, whether, I'm sure you realize this, but you're a role model for young kids. But yeah, how do you hope your writings impact them?
Yeah, so the first 2 books that I released over the last 2 years were children's picture books. So Upside Down Dreams and What's Your Call Sign? Yeah. They're kind of from a series, so same character, Lily Padilli, an 8-year-old who wants to be a fighter pilot. And the reason I had the idea to write those in the first place is I just didn't see a ton of representation for young girls in just like pop culture and media for high performance aviation, right? Like you go to the bookstore at their Air and Space Museum, the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum. There's all these books for kids. There just aren't a lot with female characters, especially geared towards a relatable character. There's a lot about Amelia Earhart.
Yeah.
But I think kids have a hard time relating with a historical figure, when they're 7, 8 years old. So when I went to the Air and Space Museum, which is where kind of this idea started when I was with the Thunderbirds, and I saw that, I was like, wait a minute, I'm seeing how these kids respond to me when they meet me in person at an air show, and I'm seeing the impact that has. How can I do that on a broader scale? And it was kind of my first year with the Thunderbirds where I'm like, I want to eventually write a children's picture book about a little girl that wants to be a fighter pilot. So it took 4 years for the first one to actually get released. I had to leave active duty. I had to find a publisher, all the things. But then this book, The Flipside, is nonfiction. It's for an adult audience, right? It's 70,000 words. It's full length. It's all about learning and personal development and growth and leadership lessons. So it's just so different than the children's books. So I think it will make, I don't know, such a different impact. I wouldn't say a deeper impact, because I think, planting the seed of a future dream for a kid is a big impact. It's just almost completely different.
There's a lot of key things you were talking about, specifically just creating the impact, and I feel like you are a celebrity. I don't know if celebrity is the right word, but I can't think of another word to use. But in your own right, you are a celebrity.
F-list. That's what I always call myself. I'm an F-list celebrity. Like, a handful of people know me, especially if I'm at an air show. Occasionally, I get stopped in the airport.
Do you ever get mistaken for any other female pilots?
Well, so Fifi Malakowski, the first female Thunderbird pilot, she had a really interesting career in the Air Force. She was a squadron commander. She's been on the speaking circuit doing keynote speaking for almost a decade now, so she's really established. So all the time people will be like, "Oh, I saw you speak at this conference in 2020 for this," and I was like, I was still in the Air Force at that point. It wasn't me. And so they confuse the two of us as speakers all the time. There's not that many of us, so people are like, "Oh, you must be the person I'm thinking of."
Do you ever get mistaken for Casey Casey?
So I think that there's a distinct enough story with the A10 for like kind of her legacy that not usually with Casey. Like, we're friends. She's awesome on kind of similar paths as well with speaking and writing, but definitely with other female Thunderbird pilots.
Yeah, they actually I'm stationed here at Wright-Patterson here at Dayton, and they were just at the museum maybe like 2 weeks ago. So I had a chance to go see him. The air show was here and everything, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Hopefully it was good.
It is. Yeah, it's amazing. So what I was getting at, like, I mean, you're an F-list celebrity.
Yeah, F-list. It's not like B-list, it's F-list.
Yeah. It's
A-list when you're at an aviation event. But once you step outside that world, definitely F-list.
Regardless of your status, whenever you meet people, you are still creating a memory for that person and making their day, their week, month, or like their friend's song, a year, right? As you were coming up, whether it was as a kid or even as a young officer in the Air Force, who was that person for you?
So as a kid, I never went to a single air show. I grew up in a rural part of Wisconsin, not military family, not an aviation family. So I just really didn't have any exposure to that world at all.
Yeah.
But I was adventurous and a thrill seeker, and I needed a way to pay for college, and I wanted to see the world.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I found my way to Air Force ROTC and eventually to pursuing a pilot slot. And then I was kind of the mentality of like, if I'm going to be an Air Force pilot, I want to be a fighter pilot. Obviously that worked out, ended up with the Thunderbirds eventually, but that was never the goal going in. And I think once I got into the Air Force, I felt like I was so consumed by the operations tempo and like the demands of learning a super difficult job that I didn't really have these like celebrity type role models that I looked up to. Like I didn't see the Thunderbirds fly until I was graduated from pilot training, already knew I was going to fly F-16s, and I was like waiting to go to my next base to learn to fly the F-16. So it was a little bit later. But there were always other female fighter pilots who were maybe an assignment ahead of me timing wise, but ended up at the same base as I was at. So like Misawa, Japan, my first combat squadron, there were 4 women on that base that were fighter pilots of the like 2 squadrons of 40 something pilots each.
Yeah.
So not a lot of us. And there were all these amazing guys that I got mentorship from as well. But there was something about seeing, as a lieutenant, seeing the assistant director of operations, who was a major in the other squadron and was also a woman. Like there was just kind of this natural, I would look up to her.
Yeah.
And I also found other female fighter pilots to just be really, really willing to spend time and energy to help mentor me and answer questions that sometimes any other pilot could have answered. but sometimes not. Like, how the heck do you go to the bathroom in an F-16 when you're a woman? Like, one of the most stressful things when you're new, because it's a big deal, obviously, it is a massive distraction. And there's not a lot of people that can answer that question.
Well, I appreciate the honesty. So thank you for that.
I'm so desensitized to that kind of stuff because it was such an obstacle at first that you just become so used to talking about it.
Yeah.
And people often ask me about it, especially kids. If I go to a school and speak, people will be like, but how does that work? And so I have a very like funny way that I talk about it. It doesn't bother me at all.
I want to go back to the book, The Flipside. So how much from your personal experiences is in the book, and what is one big takeaway you hope people get from reading the book?
A ton of my personal experiences and life lessons are in there. Like every chapter is kind of kicked off with that, but then transitions into kind of like thought leadership or scientific research. We cite a lot of studies just to like back up these ideas. The overarching principle in the book is to flip how we view fear, right? Like, I think myself included, a lot of us just think of fear as this thing we experience and it's bad. Like, I feel afraid. What can I do to turn that feeling off? I don't like it. Kind of similar to discomfort. Like, we avoid that. But much like discomfort, that's where a lot of the growth happens, right? And anytime you're going and doing something that is a big leap in your skill level or your confidence level, or it's just exposure to new stuff, you're probably going to feel a little bit afraid.
Yeah.
Whether that's afraid of physical harm, flying really close to other jets, or that's afraid of judgment, or it's a fear of failure, or whatever it is. And so I give all these personal stories about times that I've experienced that and how I've navigated it, and some just different frameworks to start to almost force yourself into sort of exposure therapy of like, I talk about SBCs, small, bold choices.
Nice.
And that's like making these tiny leaps that are just uncomfortable, just scary enough that they fall into the category of bold, but they're not so crazy and big that the odds are pretty high that you're going to fail, and that they're so scary that you just never attempt them. So it's all about pushing people to do actionable things that help them grow.
I love that. And so I guess, like, how would you shut down, or what's your advice for how to shut down internal doubt and negative chatter during critical moments?
Yeah, I call that negative inner voice the inner critic. And I talk a lot about that. It's one of the very first chapters in the book. I also lead a workshop on it for corporate audiences. And it's all about separating that negative inner voice from your internal identity, right? Like, when we're in the thick of it, we hear those thoughts of doubt and we just take them for fact, and we just accept them as like part of who we are. But when you can kind of zoom out and be like, okay, where does that voice come from? When does it tend to get riled up? Does it sound like someone from my past? Like, is it rooted in a perfectionist parent, or a coach that shamed you in high school, or a boss that was just like terrible to work for and made you question whether you deserve to be in the position you were in? I think we all have those moments in our life where we didn't feel good enough. And those big ones can actually stick with us for decades. And they can be informing our actions after that person's no longer in our life.
Yeah.
We're no longer in that same environment, but they're kind of living rent-free in our head. And they can be the foundation of that negative chatter. And so I do some exercises with people to help them zoom out, recognize where it comes from. And when they can remove themselves from that like spiral of doubt, then they can be like, okay, I observe that for what it is. I can choose to ignore it. And so it's super powerful when you can gain that perspective on it.
That's good. I mean, 'cause you're very open, which I appreciate, and transparent about dealing with imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And man, it's so true. Like, even for me, I'm still active duty. I've been in for 23 years. I'll be retiring this year.
Congrats.
Thanks. I appreciate that. I'm actually on terminal right now, but
double congrats.
Yeah, double congrats. And I just shaved the other day because I was like, I'll shave. But yeah, it's even after 23 years, I still had imposter syndrome, and even with my rank, and it's tough. Which I kind of want to dive a little bit deeper with you is because I think there's something to it. Like, uh, yeah, would you everything you said? Would you have the same response if I were to ask you the question? What's your advice for handling pressure when expectations continue to rise?
Yeah, because I think that pressure feels like doubt,
Yeah,
right? Like when you question whether you can meet it, that's self-doubt.
yeah,
And maybe that comes in the form of imposter syndrome. They aren't exactly the same thing, but they overlap a lot, right? Imposter syndrome, you feel like everyone else around you, even of the same experience level, knows more than you do.
yeah,
Like, surely you somehow snuck into the position that you're in. Like, you might have been the top of your class and whatever program got you to the position you have, but you're still just like, well, pulled the wool over their eyes again. Like, don't know how this keeps happening. I experienced that a lot during my career, despite being kind of consistently a high performer, especially early on.
Yeah.
I was just like, I don't know how this happened. But I think pressure is a good thing, right? It's a motivator. I talk about in the book the Yerkes-Dodson curve, which sounds like super nerdy, I realize, but it's basically this graph with a bell chart, but it's something that we all experience. And I think especially as a pilot, but anyone will find this relatable. There's like the low end of the scale where something's super easy, where like it's not stressful at all because you've got it.
Yeah.
Like you're like, and they talk about it in the form of like arousal level, which I realize for most people has a different meaning. But as the stress goes up, you can get to the far side of the curve where you're so stressed that you're just like task overwhelmed, can't focus, you're dropping, like you're not hearing things. In the cockpit, I would miss radio calls when I got to that point. We call it a helmet fire. Your helmet's obviously not literally on fire, but it feels like your brain is on fire because it's just so overloaded. So that's the side of the curve where performance goes down because stress is so high.
Mm.
And on that far other side where it's super low and it's super easy and you can become complacent, and then your performance can actually be lower as well. But the peak of this curve in the middle where performance goes up the highest is like a midpoint of pressure. It's kind of pressure instead of stress, but it's like that positive pressure that makes you motivated. It makes you super focused. It's where you are learning and growing and performing, but you're not maxed out to the point where you freeze or you fail.
I can't think of the author. I read the book recently. It's got a red cover, and I think it's called "How to Make Anxiety Your Superpower."
Oh, nice.
And her name, man, it's God, I'm drawing a blank. But either way, it talks about some of those similar things where fear and anxiety. To your point, it can drive us to be better. I actually want to tie that into just your time with the Thunderbirds, and because that was obviously a big part of your career. Did you watch the Netflix documentary?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course. I feel silly for asking, but of course,
it's
right?
like my friends. So it was. I would say it was cool to see the team so positively portrayed to the public and just give the public a look behind the curtain at the amount of stress that goes on during training season and the amount of sacrifice with the schedule and for the families. All of that is very accurate. It was also interesting to see the creative liberties that were taken to make it a very compelling story. I mean, overall, for the target audience, which are not Thunderbird alumni, it was great.
What kind of nostalgia did you have by watching it?
So the camera work in that movie is just so good.
Yeah.
Right? It's Kevin LaRosa worked on it. Like he worked on Top Gun. It's such high quality filming, some from a helicopter or like in cockpit cameras, that it like transplanted me back into my maneuvers.
Yeah.
So when I would see footage, especially from the solos, which by the way, there wasn't very much of, it was very diamond heavy, which is numbers 1 through 4. There's like a lot of trash talking between the diamond and the solos. It's a friendly rivalry. So the fact that the documentary was like 90% about the diamond, it's been a hot topic lately. But for the solo maneuvers, I was like, I could immediately be back in the cockpit and remember like what I would be looking at and what radio calls I would be hearing and what parameters I'd be looking for. And I hadn't really experienced that since I left. So it was cool to watch.
Why do you think nostalgia is so real for people in our generation?
I think that we're in the generation where we have a lot of decision fatigue happening and we have a lot of distractions and task switching with social media and being on call 24 hours a day and feeling like if someone texts you or calls you, you like better be reachable 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. And even if thinking back to the Thunderbirds, that was still kind of that time. It's only 3 years ago. It's not like we didn't have cell phones or social media, but that's not what that's not what the memory is about when I have that nostalgic feeling. It's about the experiences. Yeah. And a lot of our life is distractions right now, and we can get stuck in our screens and we can miss out on those experiences. So I feel like nostalgia brings us back to that focus of like, wow, that was a really cool thing I got to experience in my life. It's almost paired with gratitude.
Yeah. Now, even going back like further, just drilling in on nostalgia, like obviously hot washes and after actions are such a huge part of the Air Force culture. What are your tips for someone who wants to not only survive criticism but grow from it?
You just have to reframe how you view it. I think it's natural as humans to get defensive, right? Like we don't like to be wrong. We want to be accepted as part of the tribe. So we want to fit in. We don't want judgment. Yeah. And getting feedback, especially if it's focused on something that you need to improve. Feedback can be positive too, of course. Yeah. But I think we always assume negative feedback. But one of the things I talk to people about when they're asking about like the debrief and how they can use it in their company or with their team is I'm like, you have to make it a habit. It can't be this thing that only comes up when stuff went really bad. Otherwise, it's like a punishment. It's not feedback.
Yeah.
So you have to do it all the time. So for us, we would always do it after every single flight. And I realize that's going to look different depending what industry people are in. But even in your personal life, you can do a weekly debrief, every Friday, like check in, be like, how did I spend my time this week? Did I make it to the gym? Did I spend the time with my family that I wanted? What do I want to adjust for next week? You could also be like, what did I absolutely crush this week that I want to like perform at that level all the time? I want to make that my new norm.
Yeah.
And so just making it routine, making it not just a negative, and always remembering that the goal is not to shame you, embarrass you. It is to make you better.
You've accomplished a lot, and there's still so much more, like so many more mountains that you're going to continue to conquer. But what's something, I guess, like what are you still trying to prove? This is a new question I'm starting to ask in podcasts, but what's something that you're still trying to prove to yourself?
I think for me, I've been out for 3 years, and so much of my content focuses on my time in the cockpit. So much of it is branded around my time with the Thunderbirds. And of course, that is such a unique environment. It's so high stakes. It's so high performance. There's so much to learn from it. And it's a recognizable team and brand that people can like immediately associate with those things. But for me, I don't want that to be my entire identity, right? I don't want to be a decade out of the Thunderbirds and still speaking like I was just on the team. So, with the book, despite the cover having me in a helmet upside down, it just went really well with the Flipside.
I love it. It looks great.
I wanted to expand the content beyond a social media post with a jet video. And the book was one way to do that, to, tell deeper stories. And a ton of the stories are from that. But I think people will see there's just so much more there. And trying to really hone in kind of the thought leadership side of it. I mean, like, how can we dive deeper into some of these topics that really resonate with people? Things that I did learn from that environment in the cockpit with the Thunderbirds, but that we can expand a lot more on. And I don't know what that looks like exactly. I am figuring that out as I'm going. It's a growth process for me, but I think it's starting to change a little bit with the book with the speaking. So yeah, we'll see where it's at in a couple of years.
I'm enjoying all the clips, and we talked about that before we started recording. Just all the more than just the stuff that you're doing, in the cockpit or your past videos in the cockpit, but also just all the speaking engagements you're doing now. But more than showing like, hey, here's my highlight reel. Here's how I was feeling nervous and scared beforehand, and then thinking that no one's going to listen. So it's your content's very motivational. So yeah, I just wanted to give you that feedback.
Thank you. And I always want it to be relatable and authentic, and I don't want to fall into it being a highlight reel where it's all super, super polished and it's no longer something people see themselves in.
Yeah.
I think that's where the impact is. The audience has to relate to you.
Yeah. Speaking of relatability, I want to transition to some lighter topics, some miscellaneous questions. There's no rhyme or reason. So it's going to be, your flight path is going to be all over the place, I guess.
Sounds good. I'm used to that.
What you have a stepson or stepdaughter?
Stepson, yeah.
Does he think you're cool?
I think like closet, he thinks I'm cool now. It's taken, like when I was on the Thunderbirds, when I joined the team, he was 6, and I also met him right around that same time. And so like 6, 7, 8 years old, he would go to the air shows and he wasn't an airplane enthusiast. Like some kids are just obsessed with airplanes.
You're so lame.
He's like not one of those kids. He was like, oh, this is cool. And people would be like, isn't it so awesome that your mom flies for the Thunderbirds? And I'm his stepmom, and I was his new stepmom at that point. So I was like, she's not my mom, she's my stepmom, which doesn't offend me. Like, that's fine. That's true. But then he'd be like, it's all right. Yeah, it's cool. Then I think 2 years ago, one of my friends has a Cirrus, an SR-22T, and my stepson got to go fly in a small airplane for the first time. And I flew up front for a while. He rode in the back seat. We went over Lake Tahoe at sunset. Gorgeous. Yeah. We landed in Truckee. I hopped in the back, and he got to go sit in the front with my friend who's a flight instructor. And he flew us all the way back into land in Reno. And when we got out of the airplane, he was like, that was the coolest thing I've ever done. So I think he's more of a hands-on type kid.
Yeah.
I still don't think he thinks I'm super cool. He's 12 now. So maybe we'll give it like another 5, no, probably another 10 years before he's like, yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah. How did it make you feel in that moment? Like when he flew back to Reno and when he got out of their plane and he said that was the coolest thing ever.
I had mixed. Well, overall, I was just super excited. I just love that he wasn't scared. He just kind of embraced it, because that could be intimidating for a kid. He did the radio calls to tower and everything. It was awesome. I was also like, that's what it took. It took him being a passenger in a Cirrus, not climbing up the ladder, getting the show and tell of an F-16, not hanging out with the Thunderbird pilots. No, that was all just like normal. But actually hands-on getting to do it was like a little switch flipped for him. So it was cool. I was proud of him because he's kind of a timid kid sometimes. He doesn't love roller coasters. We used to go rock climbing with him, and he did not love the part where he had to rappel back down. Oh, yeah. Once he would get to the top, he would get really scared. So the fact that he like just embraced the flying was definitely a win.
Oh, that's cool. All right, another topic, and I've done quite a bit of research. So I've actually wanted to interview you for probably the past 2 years. You were on, so one of my favorite podcasts is Ryan Hawk, our Learning Leader show.
Yes, Ryan's awesome.
Yeah. And then I know you were recently on Justin Shank, and I took that as a sign when I saw you on Justin Shank to the Growth Now movement to reach out to you. But just a lot of research, and I've had all these just random notes about you in my phone, like ask her about this. But one of them, I don't remember the context. I have it as a note in my phone, but it says the Daytona Beach Flyover. Or so what does that mean? Or when you hear that, what comes to mind?
Yeah, so the Daytona 500,
okay,
the like massive NASCAR race, it's every February. The Thunderbirds always do the national anthem flyover for that. It's also early in the year. Like air show season doesn't start till late March usually. So this is pre-show season. And every winter, half of the pilots are brand new to the Thunderbirds. So starting in November, when the old team wraps up that show season, the new people show up. It's about 4 months of super intense training to get all the newbies spun up. So that means that flyover with a lot of eyeballs on it is one of the first things you do, if not the first thing for the public. And we got to do it every year. So the people there all know you, like all the staff, you'll see the same security guard every year. And it's a super welcoming environment. NASCAR is a very patriotic crowd. Go figure. They love the Thunderbirds, and the Thunderbirds have become kind of like a visual part of that race. Like if you see the previews leading up to the race on TV, they'll always have the Thunderbirds doing a flyover as part of the preview. Nice. So it's just become kind of this iconic thing that we get to do every year.
Nice. I want to do a quick name game. I'm going to say a couple names, just one or two words to describe the person or place or event when I bring it up. But first one is General Jumper.
Oh, he's a legend and just a really wise and nice human.
He was my first ever guest on my podcast.
Which is pretty incredible.
Yeah, and I started, and I had a friend on recently, and I'll release that episode next week, but he started his podcast 4 years ago, and I've had mine for since January of 2018. So, so 7.5. But either way, there wasn't a lot of podcasts at that time. Not like it is now. Now we see leaders on podcasts or doing podcasts and all that. But yeah, he was the first one. And I didn't even have a name for my podcast at the time. It was just a leadership podcast. And he was on it. So that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, he's obviously rose to the top levels in the Air Force and was commanding at such a high pressure job, with the biggest players. But what always strikes me about any time I've interacted with him is that he's just a really like empathetic, caring person.
Yeah. Not a big fan. He just coined me for my ceremony, which he sent me like this really nice note, and it's so cool. All right. The next name is Monty. And I think I'm getting that right. It's the female fighter pilot who inspired you. I read something that you were at a club, like an O club or something, when you were still in training, and she was
Mother.
I'm sorry, I said Monty. Mother. Yeah, man, I got that wrong. So Mother, my bad.
I was like, who's Monty? Oh man,
my bad. That's my bad. We'll hear about it in the after action. My bad.
No, that's okay. Do you want to re-record?
No. I'm leaving this in. No, that's cool. Yeah.
You had me panicking for a second. I'm like, oh shit, who's Monty? And I should know who they are.
Helmet fire. Helmet fire.
This is good because I laid a little bit of this groundwork earlier. So when I had just graduated pilot training at Columbus Air Force Base in Mississippi, I'm still there, kind of almost on like this casual status for a couple months while I wait to go to the F-16 training course at Luke in Phoenix.
Yeah.
So I'm like still working in the squadron and stuff, but I'm on the backside of like the massive stress that is pilot training, and then that anticipation of finding out which airplane you're going to go fly. I got the F-16, my first choice. It's like, pinch me, this is actually going to happen. The Thunderbirds show up to do an air show at Columbus. My first time ever seeing them. I remember they showed up and they did their site survey. I know now it's a site survey. I had no idea what they were doing. At that point, I was just a lieutenant watching from the side of the airfield and just being like, that is so cool. Also, I'm going to go fly that airplane. That's insane. And then, I think I worked at the air show. I'm pretty sure I was a volunteer, like directing traffic. So I didn't even get to really see the show close up. But then afterwards, they had a performers party at the Officers Club. And I went to that. And all the Thunderbirds were there, but the pilots were there as well. And I remember seeing Mother Hubbard. Hubbard's her last name. Mother's her call sign. She was number 8 for the Thunderbirds. So she was a pilot, but she didn't fly in the demo. She was the narrator. And I saw her in her blue show suit. And I was just like, there's a female pilot. Like, hell yeah, that's awesome. And my friend Christina, who was with me, she went on to fly C-17, so was in a class behind me. She was like, you should go talk to her. Like, go tell her that you're about to go fly Vipers. Like, you guys are, of the same club of people. But I was like, no, like, I can't go talk to her. I'm just a student. I've never touched an F-16. So I was so intimidated by her that all I did was like side-eye her across the O Club for 2 hours. Never went up and introduced myself. Didn't talk to her that entire time. fast forward, like, I don't know, 5 years later, maybe, and we had some mutual friends, and I actually ended up staying at her house in Colorado Springs and going, like, snowboarding and going up to the top of a 14er with her husband and some other friends, and she was just so awesome. Like, immediately a mentor, a friend, and I told her that story, and she's like, "You're so dumb. Like, why wouldn't you come up and talk to me? I'm the least intimidating person ever. Like, missed opportunity." So we laugh about it now, and she recently retired a couple years ago. Still an awesome person. But it's just kind of like, it's kind of a funny perspective, having been on the other side of that then, having been the Thunderbird pilot in the show suit, being eyeballed by young lieutenants at different events who were too afraid to talk to me, and being like, this is literally part of my job. Like, come talk to me. Like, that's why I am here. So yeah, that one sticks out, and I write about it in the book. It's just a funny story.
No, it's awesome. Last name, Misawa Air Base, Japan.
Yeah, as my first combat squadron, that was the hardest assignment that I ever had. Went through the lowest points in my life there. Also sent me on just a crazy growth path on the backside of that assignment. It also just gave me an appreciation for how hard our military works.
Yeah.
Like, Misawa is no joke. It's 12 to 15 hour days. It's exercises all the time. It's 200 inches of snow in the winter.
It was my first duty assignment. I was stationed there, and I got stationed there in 2004. And I left.
So, you know.
Yeah. The reason I wanted to bring that up is I know there were some trials and tribulation during that assignment, which you've talked about in other podcasts. But I think the most important question is, what was your favorite restaurant off base? Because there were so many to choose from.
Oh, yes. I mean, the ramen, Thunder Ramen was very good. So it's funny because none of these names are like the actual Japanese names, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're just what everyone on base calls them because we can't pronounce the names.
Yeah.
So usually it's based on like what the building looks like or what the sign looks like. Cat ball ramen, which is funny because there's just a big cat with balls on the sign.
I mean, that was very much like the architecture. Just that's how it was there, and it was hilarious. They're just these stats.
It's so normal. Yeah.
Now I miss, and I don't know if I left in 2008, but cheese roll was a go-to for me.
Oh, I forgot about that place.
And then I think ram ties or something like that. But I mean,
there's a really good Indian place too.
Yeah, actually, that might have been right as I was leaving. There was a place right outside the main gate when I was stationed there. But yeah, so many great memories, and I was stationed there for 5 years, and the snow was ridiculous. I don't know how I did it, but it was. And I've heard you talk about Misawa, and I was, oh man, it just a lot of fond memories of the food.
Yeah, and I feel a little bit bad because Misawa was a hard assignment for me. I went through a divorce there. I was new in my career field, and so I was just struggling with the overwhelming amount that I needed to learn. I was also really trying to find my belonging and identity in a fighter squadron, which was just like a kind of a tightrope act.
Yeah.
And so personally, it was a very overwhelming assignment. But talking about nostalgia, there are so many cool things about living there that I really did enjoy that have been kind of overshadowed by the bad stuff.
Yeah.
But going to the beach and having that like powder soft black sand.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
The skiing is incredible and everyone's so polite and it's so clean and it's so safe, and the outdoor stuff there, like hiking in the mountains or going up to Hokkaido and going to Sapporo.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the culture is so cool. I think actually as a family, we're going to try to go to Japan next year. My husband and stepson have never been. And it'll be a nice, like, full circle loop for me to close with a really positive trip there.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't want it to be like this negative, stressful black hole of 3 years in my memory.
No, Hokkaido was pretty cool. I used to go snowboarding there quite a bit. So that was...
the snow monsters. Yeah, like, it's a crazy place.
All right. Some more just kind of random questions. What's a rite of passage that you have been through over the past 18 months, if that even applies?
I was like so many in the military. Um, I think I kind of found my footing as a speaker. I think it's a little bit of a rite of passage in the keynote speaking industry to have just like a season of panic in the summer when all the companies are on vacation, kids are out of school, no one's hosting events and hiring speakers. So you go from like a normal income to just like a desert for 2 to 3 months, and it's always super stressful. Every season speaker is like, yep, that's just normal. That's how it is. It's seasonal. I'm in that period right now. We're filming this the beginning of July, or recording this the beginning of July.
Literally July 1st.
We're like in the thick of the dead season. So I feel like that's a little bit of a rite of passage. But with the book, it's just like one rite of passage after another. Going through the editing process. Okay, for like first being like, okay, I have to have 70,000 words written by this date. All right, made that happen. You're like, I have arrived. I have written a book. And then you spend like 6 months going back and forth with an editor at the publisher. And you go through one round of edits. You get the first one back and you're like, oh, it's kind of fun to get feedback from someone else for the first time.
Yeah.
You spend a month incorporating all these edits. Imagine getting a paperback in college or even in high school with like red lines, and it's like a 6-page paper. Okay, this is like a 250-page book. It's like a thesis. And then going through it, fixing everything, being like, awesome, it's good to go. You hand it back in, and that happens 4 more times. And you've gone, you know how they have the Febreze commercials where they're like, have you gone nose blind? You've just gone blind. Like, you could completely have written a word wrong and your eyeballs just can't see it anymore because you've read the same words. They've lost meaning. It's a weird experience. Rite of passage for sure, because that stuff just has to happen to write a book.
I love that answer. Thanks for sharing that. That's something I don't think you've been asked before, so I just wanted to just get some different information out of you.
For sure.
Yeah, and I like that it has to do with your book. All right, here's a random question. What are the open tabs in your web browser right now?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. It's embarrassing. I have like 3 different Gmail accounts that I use on a regular basis. 2 business, 1 personal. Those are always open. Got a little QuickBooks because all my bookkeeping for my business. I have them right here, so I'm going to tell you. A spreadsheet that's tracking my book pre-orders, very important. Let's see what else. Oh, Slack, because that's how I message with the podcast agency that I work with and my copywriter that I work with, just like everyone else.
Yeah.
Calendly, because I'm constantly sending calendar invites to people. ChatGPT, because duh, I use it for so many things. It's like having a Google tab. And then the not so fun one, Home Depot, because my oven broke yesterday. Disappointing, but it is 4th of July sales, so at least I'll get 30% off on the replacement that I don't want to buy.
To me, that's what's funny about life is regardless of what we accomplished and all these exciting things going on, there's humbling stuff like that, or just,
always.
Yeah. Like, for example, I told you some of the guests I had on recently.
Mm-hmm.
You're on that list as well. I'm talking to my wife, like, oh my God, like, MACE Curran's going to be on my podcast. And then it's like something happens with our roof and now I have to call the insurance company too. So it's just so like, no, you think you're going to have, be on a high, and it's like, no, sit your ass back down.
Turns out it doesn't matter who you are. You will wait on hold if you want to rebook a flight. You will wait 4 months to get a VA doctor's appointment. Your air conditioner will go out, like all that normal life stuff.
If you could invest $1 million into one person in 2025, who would you invest in and why?
Oh, dang. This is a hard question. I'm trying to think about people that are doing amazing things, and there's a lot of them. I selfishly would want to invest in my own business, but let's say that's not an option.
Yes, not an option.
Because I'm like, I could grow something epic with just unlimited funds, which $1 million feels unlimited for a business like mine.
Yeah.
There's a group called the Outlier Project. It's run by Scott McGregor. He's just an amazing human, like the most well-connected person I know. The people he has in his Rolodex will blow your mind. but he's also just extremely giving. And he's built this community. It's like subscription based, but it's super affordable. And he does so many cool things. They do like a humanitarian trip down to Central America every year, and they give back. They connect like people that are starting things with people that can help them.
Yeah.
They have in-person events. They do like a legend series where they bring in speakers. I was one of those, and that's how I got connected with them in the first place. So he just does so much, like in a very small business. And he's like one of those people that is like a visionary and a get shit done person in one. And so I think like that would be someone that would just create so much impact and so many ripples of positivity in the world with that money.
I'm gonna link that in the show notes. That's really cool.
I sing his praises and his organization's praises and all the people that I've connected with through it. Anytime someone reaches out on LinkedIn and is like, hey, I saw you're part of this. Is it worth it? I'm like, yes. How much time do you have to listen to all the reasons why?
No, that's cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Love it. All right, last couple questions. If there's a giant billboard with your picture on it for the world to see and your message, what would you want your billboard to say? And where would you want your billboard to be?
Oh, man. Last fall, I got to have a digital billboard in Times Square.
Nice.
With my book up there, which was very cool. But I think, it's hard to get a lot of context in a billboard. I think I'd have to have some sort of cool photo like I have on my book cover to get people's attention.
Yeah.
But then the thing I say in my keynote, I talk about it in my book, and it's like every time I say it, people are like writing it down and they're nodding their heads, is that the key to progress is having the courage to start something, even when you don't feel ready, but believing in yourself enough to know you will figure it out along the way. Put that on a billboard, I feel like so many people would read that and be like, hell yeah.
Wow. That's an awesome answer.
It applies to everyone, right? Like we all get stuck in wanting to do things and feeling not ready and getting in our own way, whether it's something small or something ginormous and life-changing. So imagine if we all just had the courage to be like, screw it. What's the worst that could happen? I'm just going to give it my best. And if I fail, I learned something from it.
I mean,
if we all operated like that, people would be doing incredible things all the time.
And that's great advice, especially coming from someone who did mock at Circle Entry. Yeah,
unintentionally.
Yeah. I almost don't want to ask this last question, but it's something I always end every podcast with, but I'm asking it anyway. But what is one piece of wisdom you would pass on to the next generation of people to help them light their own torch and carry it forward?
Yeah, I took my best line.
I know, like I'm gonna I might even cut this part out if you want, but because damn, that was good.
I think this isn't going to be as soundbite worthy as that is, because I have that line like memorized because I speak about it all the time. I think normalizing the human side of success and the human side of the highlight reel that we see from people we admire, normalizing that we all have self-doubt, we all have fear, we all have anxiety. Most of us will suffer from imposter syndrome at some point. And that when you recognize that and you realize that you're not unique and flawed because you feel those things, it kind of just makes humans humans. And even the humans that have done exceptional things, you're just like, oh, they're just a person that worked really hard at a specific thing for a long time.
Yeah.
And so it just opens the doors of possibility.
That's good. That really is good. And it's different. I'm going to clip that up just to prove it. Like,
perfect. You talked about Obama being a good orator.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to share that part or not, but just about, regardless of political affiliation, how well spoken he is. Mm-hmm. There's a clip of him from some interview, as it's a video, and he says something similar to that about just like when you've been in rooms with all the world leaders and like the most powerful people in the world, you realize they're all just people.
Yeah.
And there's some super smart ones and there's some dumb ones. And there's some like really nice people and there's some bad people. And they're all just people. And like once you realize that and it takes away this like mystique
Yeah.
of success, the world is your oyster all of a sudden.
Yeah. Do you have any parting shots or any parting thoughts or anything else you want to plug and share?
Not to beat a dead horse, but the book, you've heard a lot about it, but I did not understand how pre-orders worked and how important that was until I got in this world, and not even with the kids book, because the kids book was a small publisher, a passion project. This is with a mainstream publisher. We're going all in. PR firm, big podcasts, national level TV during launch week, all the stuff. Pre-orders literally will determine if I become a New York Times bestselling author.
Okay.
And that is my goal. For a lot of different reasons. Of course, it's like one of those things you're like, why would I not want to do that? But also as a speaker, it just elevates your reach and your ability to get on big stages. And all of those things allow me to have a bigger impact.
I'm gonna share that clip too. That's good. Michelle, thank you so much for being on my podcast. I showed you my book beforehand. This is my book of guests, and I like to write in pencil. So, and after each episode, when I have a guest on, I put a check mark next to that guest name, and it's going to feel so good to finally get that check mark next to your name. I'm a big fan of yours, and just
thank you.
What you've accomplished and everything you are accomplishing, and just everything you do for people. So thank you. I'm honored. How can I best serve you?
Really just giving me this voice and platform to share my story, and the timing of it, and the fact that you've interviewed so many people that I know or associate with or in my world. It's just super cool, and I'm glad you reached out. And I think that because you reached out multiple times.
I did.
And also on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Not just email and LinkedIn. And I get a lot of podcast requests. And that's actually what made you stand out, was that you followed back up. And that you also popped up on LinkedIn. And I was like, oh, shoot, I really need to respond to him. And then I went back to email and emailed you. Because I think as a business owner as well, sometimes you email people a couple times and you get no response and you feel like you're bothering them.
Yeah.
So I appreciate just the boldness. That's a small, bold choice, right?
Yep.
Ask for the thing you want. Send the email.
Thank you for that feedback. That's excellent. That's good to know. I appreciate that. Yeah. Michelle, thank you. I'm going to hit stop recording.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, but we'll chat for a few minutes while this is up.